Hello, BookTube. I've got a tag for you today on this sulfurously hot Monday. It is an incredibly hot Monday. The temperature in Boston is, do I have an updated notice? The temperature in Boston is 93 degrees Fahrenheit. Feels a lot hotter than that. I'm guessing that's because the humidity is up there. Let's see. Let's see if this will tell me what the humidity is. Oh no, the humidity is only 50%. Well, maybe it's just that I'm a wimp. One way or another, it's mighty hot. And 93 degrees is what we're starting with tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll probably reach 100. And Wednesday as well. And Thursday. Right now, as far as I can tell, the predictions are that the weather will break on Thursday night. And that for the week following, there'll be an almost universal chance of rain, but that the temperatures will go back down to normal, which is low to mid 80s Fahrenheit as the high for the day in late June going into early July. We will see. We will see if that is true. I have a feeling that, to use an overused phrase, I have a feeling this is the new normal. Heat waves at times and in places where heat waves never occurred before. Certainly you're all seeing the news from the western part of the United States. The numbers being reported in places like Portland and Seattle are unbelievable, and with no real end in sight. So I'm doing a tag today, not only because I'm a little bit behind in tags and because I saw one that I wasn't tagged in that intrigued me, but also because I'm pining a little. Because if it's in the mid 90s Fahrenheit, I'm obviously not going to go book hunting. Right? I'm obviously not going to do that. It's bad enough that my little dog, my little Frida Bean, I have to watch her like a hawk because she has a never say die attitude. And I have to curtail her behavior when it's this hot. We can't go on long walks at all, even before dawn. We were out before dawn this morning in what I hoped would be a longer walk, and it was even then. It was in the high 80s even then, so there was no way. It's going to make her pouty and restive for the whole of the week, but there's nothing I can do about it. But I'm pining because I can't go book shopping. I can't go to the Barnes & Noble that's here in town. I can't go to my beloved Brattle bookshop. If it's searingly hot, it's just not worth, the alarm that you're placing. You're placing your body in a genuine crisis when you do something like that, and it's not worth it. So instead, I'm doing tags, and especially this particular tag. This particular tag is the book shopping tag, which is something that I'm not doing this week. And it was created by Scientists Reading World. A channel I'd never heard of before. I'll leave a link down below. Very intriguing, and I saw it on two channels that I have heard of, two channels that I watch and that never fail to put a smile on my face. Two open, friendly channels that I, of course, recommend. One is Ian's channel, Out of This World Reader. I'll leave a link to it down below. And also Leslie at The Nerdy Narrative. Hardly needs an introduction from me, but they both did this tag recently, and I liked it not only because I'm pining to go out book shopping and can't do it. I'm not quite at pandemic levels of pining. Of course, here in the United States, from April until, I don't even know, from April, from months after it stores were largely closed, masks were heavily encouraged by your local population, not by the federal government. The federal government was still saying that, anyway, when the pandemic was at its peak in 2020, we all stopped book shopping. In the responsible parts of the world, we all stopped going out unless we absolutely had to. And like a lot of people, my pining reached a point where I finally started doing a little online shopping. And a lot of you started sending me presents, which was really nice, too. This particular heat wave pining is not quite so bad as that yet. Check in again with me on Wednesday. On Wednesday, I may be ordering books on thrift books or eBay or whatever. But right now, it's not happening. But I'm still pining enough to do a book shopping tag. And one thing you're going to notice about this tag is that a lot of these questions seem familiar. That is true. Tags manage to cover this kind of ground on a fairly regular basis. And I've often said, one of the values of that is that we all have to remember that new people are finding us all the time. So tags that cover familiar ground, there's nothing wrong with repeating, re-emphasizing, shifting around, but covering the same ground. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's good. You don't want to force a newcomer to think they need to look at your entire backlist of videos. especially if your backlist looks like mine, that you don't want to ask anybody to do that. So we're going to go through the questions about book shopping. And some of you who've been watching this channel for a long time, there's even a handful of you who've been watching this channel from the beginning. 4,000 videos. That's a lot. Some of you will know my answers to these, but we'll go through them anyway. Question number one is, how do you buy books? Physically, because you believe in the power of touch, or online, because interactions are overrated. And like everybody, like I mentioned, I had to shift almost entirely to online acquisitions of not only books, but everything else during the peak of the pandemic. Suddenly, it was strongly discouraged to even go out shopping for groceries. That's when I discovered home delivery for pretty much everything. But I still prefer the shopping that I do, as you're going to learn in this tag, is mostly secondhand. The books that I mostly read are sent to me by publishers. That's mostly what I do in terms of introducing myself to new readers. I am a book reviewer, and most of what I read is new releases in the American market, in the 15 or 16 genres that I read. So I get the books that I read in the mail. But when I am shopping for books, sometimes I will go to the big Barnes & Noble that's here in Boston, but usually I go to a used bookstore that's going to come up in this tag, and I much prefer to do that. Shopping for used books online, I do it, but oh my, oh my, there are so many potential perils involved in that. People lie. People just lie. And you can get a little better at it on sites like eBay. You can get a little better at what you're doing. Sean Stanfast has made a few videos where he gives you some very valuable tips. They were my first tips in how to do that. I could come up with a few on my own. Always look at the vendor's ratings, for instance. Always look at that. But also, when it comes to books, if you're looking for one particular book and you're shopping for it on eBay, on a site like eBay, for instance, never buy the book if the seller is using a photo off the internet as the photo of their item. Never do that. Just ignore them. Pretend they're not even there. No matter how attractive the price is, go only for the listings where the photo is in situ, where the photo is a photo of the book you are buying. Never buy something sight unseen. Never assume that the seller's description could have nicks here or there. It's largely okay. Never assume that description is accurate or honest. Instead, match their verbal description against the picture they are providing you. But anyway, I mostly prefer, when I'm shopping for books, it's always secondhand, and I mostly prefer to do that in person. Question number two is, do you prefer bigger bookshops or smaller ones? For me, always bigger. Smaller bookshops, especially smaller secondhand bookshops, are always an ordeal for me. I have been on the road many, many, many times with people where we will just accidentally encounter a little boutique used bookstore in the middle of nowhere and think, oh, should we go in? And I often am the one who's saying, no, we shouldn't. Because shopping in a little shop like that means the proprietor is going to be looking at you the whole time. And you're going to feel like you need to buy something, even if what you're finding is overpriced garbage. I much prefer a bigger store, whether it's a huge, sprawling superstore from Barnes & Noble or Borders, the type that I believe we are going to see exit stage left in the next 4 or 5 years, or whether it's a huge, busy used bookstore like, for instance, the Book Barn in Niantic, Connecticut, where I went with Mark Richardson of Richardson Reads just a little while ago. We went to the Book Barn in Niantic, Connecticut, a huge, sprawling complex of used bookstores where there are lots of customers, but there's none of that quiet shuffling around on the floor, hearing your own breathing type thing in a small shop. No way. I hate that. Also, as I think Ian mentions in his video, the bigger a store is, the more likely it is just simply numerically that you'll find something interesting. There's more stock. Question number 3 is, do you prefer to buy books when they are brand new, being the first to touch them, it being in great condition, or do you prefer used books? The ones having character, history, and personality. I infinitely prefer used books. I like the thrill of the hunt. I like going to a well-stocked used bookstore and looking for a book that's not only something you want, but that's in relatively new condition. That's always fun. And then applying the calculus of attrition if it's not perfectly new, where the you are calculating the two columns of, okay, what kind of shape is it in versus how much do I want it. I love that sort of thing. New books are kind of bland in that regard. Uh, Question number 4 is, are you a coupon TLC level crazy person or a full price Sweet 16 MTV? I have no idea what the letters here mean, but I worked in a retail bookstore for a long time where many of my customers had a loyalty card that gave them a small discount on most of the merchandise in the store. And I used to tell those customers, if you shop here often, and I know you do because we've talked, I know how often you come in here. If you shop here often, then this is not a hucksterish corporate sales pitch. This is me telling you, you shop here often enough for this loyalty card to make perfect sense. Even though it off-puttingly has a price that you pay, you're going to make that money back easily. You are. So you should do this. But I myself don't shop at retail bookstores enough to warrant that kind of loyalty card and the coupons that come with it. So for me, thrift is not an issue. The shopping that I usually do is at thrift stores where the books aren't expensive. Question number 5 is, read, research, analyze Sherlock Holmes-style or impulse buy like a shopaholic. I imagine that if I did a lot of retail new book buying, where you go into a new retail bookstore and the books are $15 at a minimum, I imagine if that were true, I would probably research quite a bit. It always baffles me when I see bigger booktube channels, for instance, where people go into a retail bookstore, drop $200 on books that are all cover buys. Or the bigger booktuber, 50,000 subscribers or more, I guess they've got the subscriber money to burn. But one way or another, they'll get on camera and say, here's a new book. I know absolutely nothing about it. Nothing at all about it. About its genre, about its history, about its author, about anything. I don't know anything at all about it. I just bought this chunk of paper and paste. I just bought it because I felt like it. I, needless to say, do not understand that at all. Not in the slightest. But the used bookstore that I go to is the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston. It's a big, busy used bookstore that also has a bargain section outside where there are thousands of books out there, but hundreds and hundreds of those books are $1 a piece. When a book is that cheap, it's no longer incumbent on you to be Sherlock Holmes. You can take a guess. You can take a gamble on something. And I routinely do. So I guess that's my preference. Question number 6 is, a book or two at a time or a full cart pandemic style till the mailman dies? I have a tendency when the prices are right, whether it's at the Strand or the Brattle or wherever, or the Book Barn in Niantic, I have a tendency to buy a lot of books at a time if the prices are right. Also, briefly, during the peak of the pandemic when I absolutely could not buy books, I found it kind of alluring to look at lot sales on eBay. If you're looking on eBay and you type in, I should do a whole video on tips for shopping books on eBay. But if you go to eBay and you want, let's say you're interested in science fiction, if you type into the search bar science fiction lot, then that search result will be massive numbers of books that are being sold for $20 or $30 or sometimes much less than that. Sometimes you get them for a penny a piece. If you're willing to put in the time to search, again, I mean, that had its allure, but again, the sellers lie. They want to trick you. If it's a lot sale, then it's a lot harder for them to trick you with just a picture they pulled off the internet. Instead, the trick with lot sales on eBay and places like it is that they will have an in situ photograph of a pile of paperbacks, let's say, or a pile of hardcovers. And then in the print of their description of the item that they're actually selling, they'll say it does not correspond to the picture. So you don't know what you're getting. So if you look at that picture and think, okay, let's say you're zooming in on that picture and drooling all over it and thinking, okay, well, for $15, I definitely want this selection of books. You have to pay more attention than that because the description is almost always going to say it's not that batch of books, that it's some other batch of books. Why? In the 21st century, when we all have high-definition cameras on us, why a seller isn't required to post a photo of the actual item they are selling, I have no idea. I guess it's because eBay and sites like it have proven that there's a sucker born every minute, that they don't need to do that and they'll still sell things. So I guess that's the reason. One way or another, if you do that search, if you search for a gigantic pile, the type that's going to make your mailman cry, be sure to read the fine print. Be sure to make sure that the thing you're looking at in the photo is the thing you're going to buy. But anyway, question number 7 is new and recent releases or older and classics? Again, for buying, it's going to be older and classics. For reading, for the actual reading that I do, 80% of the reading that I do is new releases, brand new releases. But I don't buy them. They come to me in the mail. Publishers send them to me, or editors send them to me. So if we're talking about shopping, the book shopping tag, then it's old and classic. Question number 8 is, are you a pre-order total fan freak, or wait until it arrives at the bookshop because it can wait? Pre-orders when you sign up for some new release because you don't want to forget about it and you want to get it as soon as it comes out. Amazon and authors pay a lot of attention to pre-orders. A lot of attention. I, of course, don't do it at all, because pre-orders don't happen on used books. They don't happen on older titles. They happen on new forthcoming titles. And if I'm pre-ordering a new title, then I am buying into a marketing campaign and literally giving money to the author. And that fatally compromises a potential review. And new releases are to be reviewed. As far as I'm concerned, they're to be read, but they're also to be reviewed. So giving money to an author, absolutely not. No. Question number 9 is, do you prefer special, expensive, beautiful covers, color edges, and unique editions, or is the inside of the book that counts? I might argue here that it can be both. You're not signaling, you're not revealing that you are a totally shallow simp if you buy a really pretty edition of a book. Those two things, the one doesn't mean the other. I myself am a little hard on my books, so really pretty things like Franklin or Folio or anything like that, I might really like an edition like that. I saw one at the Brattle just the other day of a book that I really like. And I have other editions of it, but I thought, wouldn't it be neat to have this? And then I thought, no, you would tear it apart. You would drip something on it. Frida would tear it apart, or you'd drop it somewhere, or you'd put it underneath something, and no. Much as I might like those things, I can't have them. I'm not good enough at taking care of my books, so I'm going to say no. Question number 10 is, picture your favorite book. Do you show your love by buying multiple copies, or do you believe in single true love? I buy multiple copies of some of the books that I really love, but never multiple identical copies. The only time I'll ever buy an identical copy of a book that I love, secondhand, again, is what we're talking here. The only time that I'll buy an identical copy is if I know that I have someone to give it to. Not because I love the book so much that I want 5 copies of Wolf Hall. I probably do have 5 copies of Dracula, 5 copies of the Jungle Books, 5 copies of the Iliad, but they are all different. They are all, in the Iliad's case, it would be a translation. Of course, you're going to have multiple translations if you really love a work. But in terms of something like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea or Dracula or Wolf Hall, I might get different editions because sometimes it's fun to read different editions. My shelves will end up having multiple editions, but they won't look the same. It's not like I'm getting, 5 copies of Edmund Morris's Dutch. One will be just fine. I love it, but I don't love it enough to have more than 1 copy of it. Question number 11 is, name your favorite places to bookshop. For me, hands down, it's the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston. I don't know, just the other day I was there and there was a whole bunch of dogs. But for me, it's the Brattle Bookshop. It's one of the oldest bookstores in America. It's 3 stories of books that change all the time. The Brattle is always out buying. They're always replenishing their stock. And in addition, like I mentioned, they have a sale lot outside with $1, $3, and $5 books. And that sale lot is open to the elements. And that's the reason, if you were curious to know earlier in this tag when I said that the Brattle shop itself told me not to come in and shop because during a heat wave, if it's going to be brutally hot, don't bother. That's the reason why. The shop is air conditioned. It's the sale lot that's the danger. For many hours in the middle of the day, it's unimpeded sunlight hitting those sale carts. And you just have to be willing to fry like an egg if you're going to go out there and do it. And I'm no longer willing to do that. For years and years, I was. For years and years, I would go to the Brattle in all weathers, in that kind of weather, and also the opposite, in the heart of the season. Those of you who are really young and watching this video will probably have to Google this, but we used to have a season called winter, where it got very cold and for long periods of time, and sometimes there would be snow and ice. The people who are watching this video who are around the age of 15 are going to have kids and grandkids in a world that does not use that word anymore. And we're seeing that as clear as day this week. But one way or another, sometimes it'd be 10 degrees Fahrenheit and there'd be light snow falling and icy winds. I'd still be out there at the Brattle sale lot browsing those cards. I would never do that anymore. But once upon a time, I used to do that all the time. And if you spend enough years being a regular customer at a bookshop, you start to be known by them. So going to the Brattle is a social event. The last time I was there, the staff and other fellow old-time customers were all poking fun at each other, and it was just a blast, just hilarious. So the Brattle Bookshop wins by a wide margin, I'm afraid to say. There are a bunch of shops in, for instance, Austin, Texas that don't exist anymore, a bunch of shops in Iowa City, Iowa that don't exist anymore that might have got the nod once upon a time, but only for propinquity. The Brattle wins, hands down. And then the last question is to tag people. And this is one of a flurry of tags that I'm going to do. So I'm not going to tag anybody except for everybody, except for people who are watching this video. If you're watching this video and you haven't done this tag and you like the idea of talking about how you acquire your books, rest assured, I am curious to know. I am very nosy, and I want to know the answers to these questions. So feel free to answer them. But in the meantime, I'm going to wrap this up and see about the bean. Well, let's check here. Since we've done this video, the temperature has gone up 2 degrees. It is 95 degrees now here. So that is when you're encroaching on the danger area. Of course, it's not hot enough for me. Absolutely not hot enough for me. But Frida has always been extra vulnerable to the heat. She's always wilted in the heat and never been willing to admit it. So I have to make sure that she's cool. I have to make sure that she's not overheating. I watch to make sure that she's not spending too much time in the sun, even though this is her favorite place, because it's just too hot. It will overheat her. Fortunately, when she starts to overheat just from sitting in the sun, her common sense does check in, and she gets up and moves around. So that's good. And that's especially a relief considering that for 15 years I had a basset hound who could be in extreme physical danger and still not move a half an inch to get out of the way. With my basset hound, my little Lucy, there was, well, as visitors here used to say to me in hushed whispers, I think there's something wrong with your basset hound. That was entirely true. Frida is a normal dog, so she will take at least that effort. But when we're outside, and there are people to come up to run up to and dogs to reprimand, she sometimes balks at the idea of a short walk, and we have to have those this week. So one way or another. That is a Monday tag. I'm going to do another tag tomorrow as well. I have a bunch of tags I want to do, so I'll just do one a day until they're all burned off. But this was something new. I hadn't been tagged on this. I don't think any of the channels that I've listed that I'm linking down below, I don't think any of those channels even know that I exist. So they certainly didn't tag me. But one way or another, I was happy to do it. It's tons of fun, and I'd love to hear your answers. So I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.